Well, emergency marketplaces don't come around too often, and when they do, it's because we have breaking news, important stuff to talk about. And to be honest, you wouldn't believe what it took to get here, even recording this right now on a Friday night. But Olgun Uluc joins me because Olgun, let's start with probably the biggest news of the day, one of many, but a three-time NBA champion in JaVale McGee joining the champion Illawarra Hawks. This is a massive signing.
Yeah, Pete, it was a giant day in NBL news. It started in the morning with the Perth Wildcats making a big signing. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But it ended with JaVale McGee, like you said, three-time NBA champion, 16-year NBA vet, absolute highlight reel in the NBA, a cult hero across world basketball over the past 2 decades, joining the Illawarra Hawks on a one-year deal. This is someone who has, I think, finished his career in the NBA. He's been playing in Puerto Rico most recently, and he's been playing relatively well, playing against some of the high-level bigs in the NBL who've been out in Puerto Rico and putting up really good numbers on the best team in the league and performing extremely well in the playoffs right now. The defense is still at a really high level. I think that's what the Illawarra Hawks see in him. But this is someone who's going to come in, fills an absolute need at that five spot with Sam Froling still out with that Achilles injury. And he brings this a two-way threat to a team that needed that depth in the front court. And you think of some of the NBA guys we've had, some of those long-term NBA guys, Montrezl Harrell, Andrew Bogut, Matthew Dellavedova. JaVale McGee is the next one in a long line. And Pete, I think he's going to surprise some people because, yes, he's 37, but I think there's still a lot of basketball there.
Yeah, it's worth bringing up again the Puerto Rican League this year of how well he's played. An all-league guy there alongside Sam Wardenberg. He's been terrific. And the fact that his NBA career is very much behind him now. He comes in with a different mentality to all of what he's trying to achieve. But he's going to come into a place that I think is really going to suit him. He's going to have a whole lot of fun. That we know we keep talking about the vibe of the Illawarra Hawks. That's the off-court side of it. I think he's going to fit in seamlessly there. But on-court, with the likes of Tyler Harvey, you can put shooting around him with Todd Blanchfield now, who seems to be getting better as he gets older. He's not slowing down anytime soon at the four spot. This seems like a really good piece for them to go and have a really good crack at running back to back. I really like it. When I first started to hear about it, I started to think there's no way they've got this done. But talking to the Hawks this afternoon after you broke the news, they were hot on it early. Matt Campbell was working really hard, and just seeing what he's produced in the Puerto Rican League, which has taken steps forward each year and being how good it is in attracting big talent. I'm really excited to what JaVale McGee can bring to the NBL. And alongside the certain characteristics of players around him in the Hawks, they still have to nail this import point guard. But I just see him really seamlessly fitting into the NBL style. And if he can understand that FIBA style and continue to grow that game, who knows what he could achieve here.
Yeah, I think the size, the length, the ability to block shots, I think that works in the feed game. The Puerto Rican stuff is super interesting because the league is still it's still a little bit janky. It's up and down. It's not the most organized. But you look at the NBL guys who currently play there. Tyrell Harrison, Sam Ordenberg, Sam Menenga. A lot of guys went over there, and what that meant was a lot of NBL teams kept a really close eye on it because you're keeping an eye on a lot of these NBL players. And I think some teams saw JaVale McGee and they thought, all right, yes, he's 37, but he's putting up 17 and 9 on a really good team and performing well against these NBL players. And these NBL players are high level starter bigs. And so if they can do that, if you can bring someone like McGee, who's a legit 7 foot, can block shots, high block percentage, high defensive rebound percentage. He had one of the best defensive ratings on the best defensive team in Puerto Rico. There's a sense that all of that stuff can translate. This is probably an indication that Sam Froling might be out for a little bit longer than we think, or at the very least, they will ease him back in. And with McGee there, they can ease Froling back into the mix because they do have that guy there at the five. And I think the thing that people maybe don't completely respect about McGee because there is the Shaqtin' in a full element to the sort of cartoonishness around his career, but he is a high character guy. And I think that's important to note. It's something the Illawarra Hawks really like. He's someone who comes in with a high character. He was added to the 2020 US Olympic team because of that as well. Yes, on the court, we know what he can do. You don't last 16 years in the NBA for no reason, but you also last there because you have a high character. And I think that's a really important thing he brings to a team that has a lot of high character guys that just won a championship.
The Sam Froling piece is interesting here because, again, I think a lot of people put a bit too much, I guess, pressure on Sam Froling's return when you look at the way that it was all shaped out and expecting him to come back in January. If everybody's thinking, how does this team go back to back? Well, by the time Sam Froling gets back, he slots into a starting five role. we start to run it back in the back end of the season. That's a lot to ask of a guy coming on the back end of an Achilles injury and the rehab. So this really allows him to potentially even come off the bench for the rest of the season if he has to, but still have a big impact and slowly build it up while rather than have to rely on him to throw him in there for major minutes fresh off getting back onto the court. That's one side of it. And we also thought in Las Vegas, even beforehand, they were talking to Matt Hurt. We know how close that got before the European deals eventually became too hard for him to turn down. We thought the power forward spot was the one they were focusing on. This allows them to have that versatility to throw Mason Peeling at the four, Todd Blanford, as I said, at the four, even Wani Swakler-Bullock, the way the NBL plays, can go down to the four if you need. With the core group with Dave O'Hickey, Tyler Harvey, and this last really key import point guard piece to go, all the signs look really positive once again for the defending champs.
And Pete, they still have pieces to fill. So right now, it doesn't look like they're built like a team that's about to defend a championship because they do have those spots
Mm.
still left to fill. So that import guard spot that they're looking at, that'll be really important. What level of player are they able to slot in there? They have some local spots left. Let's see if Jack McVeigh is an option for them. I know they have a lot of interest in him. Let's see if that happens. I know they have interest in Nicole the Gack as well. So let's see if that happens too. So there are still some locals out there that they need to fill this roster with, but it was something we spoke about super early in the offseason. They brought back a lot of that core. And that is really important to defending a title. And so bringing back that core and someone who I think can be really high level in JaVale McGee, they're slowly building a team that can defend a title.
Patience is a virtue. Patience is seeming to pay off for a lot of teams around the league. And fans, I think, now are starting to breathe a sigh of relief. And also, I think fans are starting to backtrack on a couple of tweets around the place who put a lot of pressure on their teams. And that is a perfect segue here for the Brisbane Bullets because we sat here and the signing of Jalen Adams was big. Tyrell Harrison not getting the two-way deal, him returning, expecting him to take another step forward. He was terrific in Puerto Rico. But even with those pieces, we all were thinking they need a scoring punch. They need a little bit more scoring to help Jalen Adams, Harrison, Casey Prather. They need something else. And they landed it today big time.
Out of all the guys that we're going to speak about today, yes, JaVale McGee is the most high profile. He's the one that will be spoken about the most. But Javon Freeman-Liberty is probably going to be the most productive. He comes in as someone who averaged over 20 points a game in the G League. He is someone who can give you 30 points a game on 30 points on any given night in the NBL. And when you look at that backcourt in Brisbane now, that Stu Lash has Jalen Adams and Javon Freeman-Liberty, two guys who can give you 30 points on any given night. And he's just an absolute bucket getter. Around the league, I got a lot of texts when this news first got out there that, man, this is someone who we really like. He's someone who's 25 years old, was just with the Windy City Bulls. We saw him in Vegas with the Chicago Bulls Summer League team. A lot of
Mhm.
teams had their eye on him. And I think he's someone who can come into the NBL and can figure out ways to score really quickly.
Yeah, kudos to the Bullets for getting this done. And again, you start to piece together their roster. There's versatility here for new head coach Stu Lash to use. You know, Jalen Adams is going to be in the backcourt alongside their bucket getter now. Then you have Alex Dukas coming in, Sam McDaniel. There's going to be a little bit of a roles to play out there. Do you want defense? Do you want offense? Do you want a little bit of both? Casey Prather, Tyler Harrison. It's all come together really nicely for the Bullets and something for Stu Lash as a new head coach. He's got all the pieces, all the tools are there now for him to go and try and get them all to mesh, put the puzzle together. And as long as they stay healthy, which they really struggled to do last year, hopefully that was a once off. They've got all the right pieces here to really make a run at this thing.
Like a healthy Casey Prather, if Jalen Adams can have a rebound from what was an up and down season in Sydney, there was some back issues too. The hope is that he's overcome those. Between Adams and Freeman-Liberty, you have ball carriers there. And then let's see if the complementary players, again, hopefully everyone stays healthy, but we want to see a full season from McDaniel. What can Alex Dukas do in the NBL? What is Jacob Holt going to look like in the NBL? Speak to people around Brisbane. They're very, very excited about what he's going to do. They've been speaking highly of what Tane Murray is already doing over there in the off season. Stu Lash is working very, very hard out there. So I'm curious to see if the depth is there for this team to compete. But at the very least, and we haven't even mentioned Mitch Norton, which I feel
Hmm.
bad for not even mentioning him first off. But between Jalen Adams, Javon Freeman-Liberty, Casey Prather, Tyrell Harrison, these are all guys who can create advantages in their own ways, and that is such a weapon for Stu Lash, who again, first time as a head coach, we don't know what he's going to look like. But having these guys who can create advantages effectively out of nothing is so valuable for him.
The Freeman-Liberty piece on its own, as you said, we hear the whispers around Las Vegas Summer League, and everybody, not just from the NBL, who had their eyes on what he could achieve and what he could do with being such a prolific scorer. That was also what we heard from the Tasmania Jack Jumpers imports as well. We start to look at the new imports of, you know what, who's going to be that one guy or a couple of guys who really put their name in the forefront of the key players in the NBL 26 watch list. We saw it last year. Kendrick Davis came in, made a splash, put together one of the best statistical seasons we've seen in a very, very long time. This is someone who you could see average over 20 points a game for the Bullets alongside Adams in the backcourt, who's going to cop off a lot of attention. And how quickly he translates to the NBL game is going to be key. But scoring comes pretty easy to a guy like this.
Yeah, and the other thing is, where's the trend of imports this season? They're getting a little bit younger,
Mm.
and that's something that I think a lot of teams saw last season. Kendrick Davis, Matt Hurt, two MVP finalists, both 24, 25 respectively. Javon Freeman-Liberty is 25. Think of the Jack Jumpers. Bryce Hamilton is quite young. The Phoenix are going extremely young with their imports too. Teams are seeing a lot of these young imports and thinking, all right, these are the ambitious guys. These guys are coming in with a lot of drive. They want to get to the NBA. They want to continue to build their profile internationally in world basketball. It's where a lot of teams are trending these days, and especially with the way the NBL pace of play is. These teams run up and down. They want young guys who are able to keep up.
You mentioned the Phoenix there. That was another signing you dropped today. We know the heartbreaking news for their fans when they lost out on Amari Moore and had to release him for his European deal. But they bring in a new combo guard who seems to fit the Josh King billing.
Yeah, so Hunter Maldonado. Now, he played in Germany last season. He was with the Oklahoma City Blue the season prior to that, the Thunder's G League affiliate. Now, you're looking at like a 6'5", 6'6" combo guard. Josh King
Mm.
plans to play him at the point. And it's similar to what Omari Moore was in that maybe not the same level, but someone who can be versatile. So King plans to start him at the point, but then they do have Owen Foxwell there. They do want to continue to lean in to what Owen Foxwell does well on the court. So once he plays the point, then you can sort of mix and match with who else you're putting out there. They have Nathan Sobey, you have Angus Glover. You can plug and play with a lot of these guys. Brent Blindberg is coming in, and he is someone who can probably play 1 through 5 of the NBL. And so I think the positional versatility is what Josh King really likes here. He's someone who you can throw whatever mishmash of guys out there. And I think the expectation is they're all good basketball players who can make it work. And so I'm very curious to see with no one's locked in positionally. Will that work in the NBL? We're used to seeing a lot of teams, put guys in boxes. Josh King isn't doing that. Bringing a lot of young guys with positional versatility, and let's see if it works.
It's true because again, every time we spoke to Josh King, we've heard about names around the Phoenix. It's exactly that. We saw the size that was after with Amari Moore playing that point guard role, but who can be a combo guard. And you mentioned there Owen Foxwell. It is very clear that the Phoenix are leaning on a way bigger role for Owen Foxwell this year, playing for the Boomers right now, continues to improve every single season. Take out Geordie Hunter, a couple of the other backup bigs that they've signed. You're spot on with the fact that it looks like they're just going to roll the ball out there and say whoever has the best matchup at the time is going to play different roles. Vrenz is going to be a fascinating watch. I'm really excited to see what he can bring. Glover, we know, just sustained a little injury that hopefully shouldn't keep him out too long, but you could see this team play small at times. You could see them play really big if they have to. Playing with some extreme length on the wings. Malik Lewis coming back for a second year. And that's why I thought when he announced this signing, reported signing for the Phoenix is the size they have. Josh King seemed that if on the whiteboard, no matter what the name was, it was going to be over 6'5" at least.
Yeah, and look, between Maldonado and Sobey, you have an all Wyoming backcourt. So that's a fun little wrinkle in this signing too. But I think it's while this isn't someone who's going to be an absolute bucket getter, right? We've seen those around the league. I think the entirety of this Phoenix roster are just guys who can go and play basketball. You can throw the ball out there and they can just go and play. And I think if you look at the roster, if you look up and down, there are enough guys who can go and create advantages. So it should be okay that they don't have that Parker Jackson Cartwright, that Kendrick Davis, that Javon Freeman-Liberty, someone who you just throw the ball to and they'll get you a bucket. I think they're leaning on the fact that we have a lot of really good basketball players, and if they play the right way and under Josh King, then they're going to be able to be effective on both ends. So I'm very curious to see what it looks like, and they have their eye on a four-man, a
Mm.
4-5 to add to the mix too. Once if they get the guy that they want there, then you look up and down that roster, there's a lot of depth there. which I think is going to be key in a season like this, where a lot of teams are getting deeper and deeper.
I'm not going to push on the fact that you smiled then when you said if they get the guy they're after to try and get some more names out of you, because it's been a busy Friday night and my Adelaide Crows are playing, and we've got a lot to talk about still to remaining. Ben Henshall returning to the Perth Wildcats for a multi-year deal. Now, understanding that his college dreams didn't come through after the draft combine, a lot has happened this offseason for Ben Henshall. This is a big signing for the Perth Wildcats because, from what I understand, he left some more enticing offers on the table to return home to the Wildcats.
Yeah, it's bittersweet for Henshall because he did want to go to college, and there was a ginormous pay packet there
Mm.
for him to go there. Texas Tech was the team that was chasing him the hardest, and I think that's where he would have ended up. But he wasn't able to find his eligibility, and so he comes back to the NBL. Like you said, a lot of other NBL teams were interested in him. Let's name them. The Cairns Taipans were very interested in him. The Illawarra Hawks were very interested in him, filling that guard spot with Ben Henshall, and so they were after him. But the Perth Wildcats continued their communication with him. Obviously, he's a Western Australia kid, so they felt like they were the front runners for him, and they ultimately were. And he comes back in, and we said this prior to Summer League that if the Wildcats were able to retain Ben Henshall and get a marquee center, then they're looking just fine. If anything, they're looking really, really good. And what did they do? They went and got Joe Luala Jr. and they retained Ben Henshall. So this is huge for them. I'm curious to see what they put next to him. I think I don't know if Ben Henshall and Bryce Cotton was the perfect match, those two playing alongside each other. So do they get a guy who can maybe create a little bit more, maybe more of a distributor? That's the sort of guy they've been looking at. But let's see if they do that now. But Ben Henshall is someone who, again, if we can see the growth that we saw from him from year one to year two, if we see something similar to that from year two to year three, then this is an obvious starter level guy for the Perth Wildcats, and I think makes them an obvious finals contender.
And again, we talk about patience. I know fans want to see signings the minute the off-season opens, and then when everyone else is filling out their team, Sydney Kings were done early, the 36ers were done pretty early. Fans start to stress, and understandably so. But the Perth Wildcats have slowly stuck the course and ended up putting together, as you said, a finals contender already, probably without having to nail this last piece. But from all reports of what they're going after, if they get this done, then the Wildcats are going to be around the mark, and it's going to be fun to watch. Olgun, we can't completely say goodbye without touching on some really tough news out of the other night from the Boomers with Tasmania guard Sean McDonald. Confirmed ACL, which is just devastating for a guy who missed a bunch of last season and continued to show over the last 3 or 4 years that he was destined to have, when healthy, a breakout campaign and solidify himself as one of the best local guards in the league. And I know how highly he is regarded by Adam Capehorn as the Boomers coach. I know how much they love and can see all the improvement that he has. This really sucks from everybody's point of view. We wish him all the best. But from a Tasmania point of view, them keeping that import spot up their sleeve, it could come in handy right now.
Yeah. So again, there's a reason why Sean McDonald started that game against Colorado. There's a reason why Scott Roth was going to give him the keys to the Tasmania Jack Jumpers. He's very highly regarded as a point guard who can start for you, who can be an elite connector. He's just unbelievably solid as a point guard. So that is how he's regarded around Australian basketball. It sucks as well because that injury was quite innocuous. He fell on it, he shot the free throws, and then he ran back. And it reminded me of Klay Thompson a couple of years ago, where he was running on it too, but he knew that something was wrong with it. And so obviously we wish the best for him. McDonald missed the most of last season, and with that ankle injury that was recurring, and when he played, the Jack Jumpers were really, really good. And I think that's what Scott Roth, I think it's what Darren Smith, I think it's what that whole franchise saw in him, that if we can keep you healthy and you're our point guard, then we can be an effective two-way basketball team. The Jack Jumpers are very, very lucky that Will Magnay did not get a two-way deal because
Mhm.
they would have gone and used that third import spot that they kept open on a big man, and then they wouldn't have really had any option to fill this point guard spot they would have had to fill from behind, which I think would have completely shattered their finals chances. The ability to retain Will Magnay and then keeping that third import spot open means that they can use it on an American to replace Sean McDonald. So it's not the biggest blow for them. Yes, losing a high level local is tough at the best of times, but they can go and use the import spot. And then I'm intrigued because I'm not sure we've ever seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, an import one, two, and three in the NBL with Josh Bannon and Will Magnay there, obviously as the 4 and 5. But I don't know if we've seen a one, two, and three in the NBL, and I'm very curious, one, how much money they have to spend because Will Magnay and Josh Bannon are marqueable guys. And which means that if you get a third import, Josh Bannon's contract, you would assume, is the one that they would have to eat the entirety of. on the cap, but I'm curious at how much money they have to spend at that spot and what level of player they can get right now when I don't think they were prepared to start recruiting import guards.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating watch. As you said, it's definitely not the be all end all with the fact that they have that third import up for grabs, but it's not going to come cheap to be able to go and land someone right now. But they still have a chance to go and put together a very, very strong season. As we said previously on this episode and in the last couple of weeks, their imports are no joke. They're going to be absolute studs. Josh Bannon's going to be great. Will Magnay return? So they can go out there and still steady the ship for a season, contend for a title if they land this next piece to come in. And then when Shawnee Mack comes back next year, we can't wait to see the comeback. Olgun, I need to have a weekend off. We've got a lot going on. I'm sure it's going to be very busy. The Blitz is around the corner. NBL 26, I think, is 48 days away from memory. You need to take a rest too because you've had a very busy day, and it's so much so that it nearly ruined your Wi-Fi.
Uh, Guys, if you knew the absolute war we had to go through to get me on this
We,
show,
no we.
I had a war to get on this show, and so I thank the NBL team for being patient with me. And everyone at home, please wish Pete's wife a happy birthday. Um, yes,
I
I'm ready for
appreciate
bed.
it. Thank you very much, Olgun. Thank you, everybody, for listening. It's going to be a very busy couple of weeks as we get ready for the Blitz and then the season's around the corner. Yes, that is a short sleeve collar shirt Olgun's wearing. Thank you for listening. This has been an emergency marketplace.